Picture a man sitting in his car at a red light, eyes drifting down to the small screen on his dashboard, not to check messages, not to change the music. He is watching a number, a single number that represents how many miles his car is traveling on each gallon of fuel. The light turns green. He accelerates so slowly that the driver behind him taps the horn in frustration, but the man does not care. That number on the screen just ticked upward by a fraction, and something in his chest quietly settled. To most people watching from outside, this looks like obsession, maybe even a little strange. But to understand why certain people become deeply fixated on fuel economy and mileage, you have to look far beneath the surface of the behavior itself. Because what appears to be an obsession with numbers is actually a window into some of the most fundamental psychological needs a human being can have. People who obsess over fuel economy are not a rare breed. They exist in every country, every income bracket, every age group. They are the ones who coast toward red lights instead of braking sharply. They inflate their tires to the exact recommended pressure every single week. They track every fill-up in a spreadsheet that goes back years. They know their car's average consumption down to 2 decimal places, and they notice immediately when something changes by even a tenth of a unit. Some of them plan their routes not just by distance or time, but by terrain and traffic patterns, because a route with fewer stops and gentler hills will always return a better number at the end of the journey. From the outside, this behavior seems disproportionate. The money saved is often modest. The time invested in tracking and optimizing can far exceed any financial return. And yet the behavior continues, deepens, and in many cases becomes one of the most consistent rituals in a person's daily life. The reason why reveals something profound about how human psychology actually works. The first and perhaps most powerful force driving this behavior is the need for control. Modern life is filled with variables that individuals cannot influence. Economic conditions shift without warning. Relationships carry uncertainty. Health is unpredictable. Career paths rarely unfold the way people expect them to. For many people, this constant background hum of uncertainty creates low-level psychological stress that never fully disappears. What the fuel economy obsession offers is something rare and genuinely valuable in psychological terms. A domain of near-complete control. The driver cannot control the price of gasoline at the pump, but they can control how efficiently every drop of that fuel is used. They can control their acceleration, their braking, their route, their tire pressure, their driving posture, their speed on the highway. Within the act of driving, they have found a system they can master, optimize, and measure. Psychologists who study perceived control consistently find that when people feel they have agency over meaningful parts of their environment, their anxiety decreases and their overall well-being improves. The car becomes a place where chaos is not allowed in, where skill and attention produce measurable, reliable results. There is a man named Elliot who lives outside of Portland, Oregon. He works as a mid-level project manager at a logistics company, a job he describes as unpredictable and often frustrating. Decisions get made above him. Deadlines shift. His effort does not always connect clearly to outcomes, but every morning and every evening, during his 40-minute commute, something changes. Elliot drives a hybrid sedan, and he has been tracking his fuel economy obsessively for 6 years. He has a notebook in the glove compartment and a separate spreadsheet on his laptop at home. He knows that driving at 62 miles per hour instead of 70 improves his average by nearly 4 miles per gallon on the highway stretch of his route. He knows that preconditioning his car on cold mornings reduces warm-up fuel consumption. He knows his best ever recorded tank and the exact conditions that produced it. When asked why he does this, Elliot pauses for a moment and says something quietly revealing. He says that when everything else feels like it is out of his hands, this is the one thing he can actually get better at. That statement carries the entire psychology of this behavior inside it. Beyond control, there is the psychological concept of mastery. Human beings are wired, deeply and fundamentally, to seek competence. From early childhood through old age, the experience of getting better at something produces a distinct and powerful form of satisfaction. Psychologists describe this through the lens of self-determination theory, which identifies competence as one of the 3 core psychological needs that all humans share. People who obsess over fuel economy are, in a very real sense, practicing a craft. Hypermiling, as the practice is known in enthusiast communities, involves a sophisticated set of skills, reading traffic patterns far ahead, understanding the physics of momentum and drag, learning the precise throttle inputs that keep a vehicle in its most efficient operating range, timing deceleration so that kinetic energy carries the car forward without additional fuel. These are not simple habits. They require attention, practice, and genuine knowledge. And as with any skill, improvement feels deeply rewarding in a way that is difficult to fully explain to someone who has not experienced it. The tracking behavior itself also deserves psychological examination. Many fuel economy obsessives maintain detailed records over months and years. This is not merely practical. It is driven by something that psychologists call measurement motivation, the psychological satisfaction that comes from quantifying progress and seeing it laid out in visible form. When a person records a new personal best on a tank, or notices that their average has climbed steadily over a season, the brain responds with genuine reward signals. The data becomes a narrative of improvement. A story the person is telling about themselves, evidence that their effort and attention are producing results in the world. In an era where so much human effort disappears into digital work with no physical trace, the ability to point to a number and say that their skill produced that result carries deep psychological meaning. There is also a strong identity dimension to this behavior. People who engage deeply in fuel economy optimization often begin to incorporate it into how they see themselves. They are the efficient one, the thoughtful driver, the person who does not waste. This identity connects to broader personal values around environmental responsibility, financial discipline, and mindfulness. For many in this community, the behavior feels morally meaningful. Every mile per gallon gained is a small act of resistance against wastefulness, a quiet statement about the kind of person they have chosen to be. Research in identity psychology shows that when behaviors align with deeply held values, they become self-reinforcing. The person does not need external rewards to continue. The behavior itself becomes part of who they are. Stopping would feel like a kind of self-betrayal. The community that has grown around fuel economy obsession is worth examining carefully. Online forums dedicated to hypermiling attract tens of thousands of members who share route strategies, vehicle modifications, driving techniques, and monthly logs. These spaces have their own hierarchy based entirely on demonstrated skill and knowledge. The person with the highest recorded efficiency on a particular vehicle earns genuine respect. New members learn from experienced ones. Strategies are debated with the seriousness of any technical discipline. What this community provides is a sense of belonging built around a shared and specific passion. For people who feel out of place in more conventional social environments, these communities offer something genuinely valuable, a place where their particular kind of attention and dedication is not just accepted, but admired. Psychologist Abraham Maslow identified belonging as one of the most fundamental human needs, and the fuel economy community delivers it in a form that also satisfies the need for competence and intellectual engagement simultaneously. There is something else operating underneath all of this that rarely gets named directly. For certain people, the obsession with fuel economy is also a form of meditation. The practice of hyperaware, intentional driving requires full presence. There is no room for rumination about the past or anxiety about the future when attention is fixed on traffic patterns, throttle position, speed differentials, and the numbers updating on the dashboard. The drive becomes a moving mindfulness practice. Research on attentional focus and mental health consistently shows that activities requiring full present moment engagement reduce symptoms of anxiety and depression. The car, for these individuals, functions as a space of mental quiet that is increasingly rare in modern life. The obsession is not really about fuel at all. It is about finding a reliable pathway into a state of calm, focused presence that the rest of daily life rarely offers. What the fuel economy obsessive is ultimately teaching everyone who pays attention is something worth sitting with. In a culture that celebrates speed, consumption, and constant acceleration, these individuals have quietly chosen a different set of values: patience over urgency, precision over power, attention over autopilot. They have found in the ordinary daily act of driving a practice that gives them control, mastery, identity, community, and mental peace. The numbers on the dashboard are just the surface. Underneath them is a human being doing what all human beings do, searching for a space in the world where their effort genuinely matters, and where getting better at something still means something real. The next time someone sees a car coasting gently toward a red light while everyone else accelerates and brakes hard, it might be worth remembering that the person behind that wheel is not being slow. They are being deliberate. And in a world that has largely forgotten the difference, that is worth something.